You sent some stuff, or you still have some
send
stuff?
Victoria.
Oh, great.
He actually.
So if you can get with her, that's good. If you want to talk to me, that's fine too. Whatever you want to
He
do.
didn't score higher
I
than
don't want to
the
talk
top
to you,
3
maybe.
in the first round. So, and I pointed out that he's asking.
Have a coffee 5 minutes.
I got to curate right
Oh,
behind
hey,
me.
I'll be over.
It was him.
Come on down.
Andrea.
Do you have any?
Rank them all.
Any what? If I know you're coming in advance, I'll have some cookies for you.
Or I'll just bring some.
Oh yeah.
I'm giving more than 10 minutes break.
Right. Yeah.
I think I will be.
Exceeded that threshold.
There's always food down at the community center. And it's all super healthy.
Yeah.
No calories at all. So no calories owed down there, huh?
Thanks for coming. I just don't want to hold up.
Ever. I've started like 5 diets and
get
I
it.
gained like 15 pounds since
I saw it yesterday. It's like, I need to get to that. And today it was
well,
like,
I have no control, no self-control.
get up at airport meeting.
We gotta get started here.
Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call to order the regular work session for the Sierra Vista City Council for April 24th, 2018. And we have Christine Wolf is in Phoenix, so she won't be here. And I didn't get a readout on the other councilwoman. I'm assuming she'll probably be here a little bit late. But we've got everybody I think we're supposed to have. So we'll start with the agenda items for Thursday. And we really have kind of a light schedule. Of course, we do the roll call invocation pledge, and under the awards presentations, we've got some awards. We're doing a proclamation for the Joint Service Clubs, and Rachel is awarding the Business of the Month. I don't know who it is.
Thought it was First West. I think that's what was in the.
Is it First West?
Yes.
Okay. Then we have, I guess it's Carl's going to do a presentation for the Certificate of Excellence from the Commission of Disability Issues. And then we have two very important departments to recognize their employees of the year, both the Fire Department and the Public Works Department. So other than that, we got the report from the city manager who will not be back before Friday. So it'll be from the assistant city manager. And then item number 2 is the approval of the minutes. Was there any additions, corrections, deletions, discussion on the minutes of 12 April? Okay, then we had 2 appointments, Mr. Grisham for the West End Commission and Mr. Moreno for the Parks and Rec Commission. Any discussion on those? Okay, that's our entire schedule. So we probably won't have much to vote on, but we'll have a lot of presentations. So that's right. You're going to be in Mexico. Yeah. Okay. So next we'll move to the presentation. Today we have, and forgive me, Sarah. Gojkovic. I would have got part of it right. The Vich part I would have got right. From the Arizona Association of Arizona Children's Association, she's going to talk to and the foster care program, and she's going to take a few minutes to enlighten us. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. As the mayor said, I am Sarah Gojkovic. I'm the program director for the foster care and adoption program in southeastern Arizona. I cover 5 counties: Cochise, Graham, Greenlee, Santa Cruz, and Gila. I have approximately 11 workers. Excuse me. I can't hear you on TV. Okay. I have approximately 11 workers under me, and they all cover the same regions. So the mission of Arizona's Children Association is to protect children, empower youth, and strengthen families. We are able to do that because we are a statewide organization, and we have all of the programs that I'm going to be discussing, or I will show you, in each area. So it makes it great for the state to have all of the programs that we offer. Arizona's Children Association was founded in 1912, and it was originally an orphanage. And we just grew from there, and we became one of the oldest and largest child welfare and behavioral health agencies in Arizona. Some of our programs, foster care and adoption, which is what I am the program director of. We have behavioral health and trauma crisis response, family preservation and reunification, kinship services, family education and support services, and young adult services. This is kind of a busy slide, but it is just to show you each county in Arizona and what we have to offer in those counties. Now a little bit about my program. What we do is we train and support foster families, both community and kinship, to care for children who are removed from their parents while their parents are trying to get their lives together to get their children back. We also collaborate with adoption placing agencies, and we work with them to provide adoption services. That could be home studies, that could be placing children, and that could also be post-adoption services, which means that once children are placed in an adoptive home, we would monitor. Foster care strives to do is when they are removed. So what we try to do is we try to train our foster and adoptive families to ensure that we are in one home rather than them being bounced from home to home to home. As they are bounced, and if they are bounced from home to home to home, they are losing some of their social and emotional welfare each time. And so we want to do the best that we can for our kids and just keep them in one home. The way that we do this is we utilize a trauma-informed approach, meaning that we train our families on what trauma is like in children. When they are removed, that is a traumatic event. A lot of our kids in care have PTSD, and that manifests in some interesting ways, usually behaviors that are a little difficult. So what we try to do is we try to prepare our families for what that looks like so that they're not shocked and so that they don't think that these behaviors are manipulative and that these kids are trying to do this on purpose. Oftentimes they are not. So with that, that helps our families get that sense of perspective when these kids are throwing tantrums or doing whatever they're doing, and it helps them take themselves and remove themselves from that situation and really look and see what that kid is going through. Trauma-informed approach does help keep kids in homes. We are one of the best trauma-informed agencies, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later and what we're doing, some exciting stuff with that. Arizona's greatest need for foster families is for families that will take children 5 to 17. Those children are the ones that are usually the hardest to place, and we desperately need homes for those children. A majority of those children, if they aren't placed in an in-home setting, go to group homes. Arizona has done great things. They have drastically reduced the number of children in care from 19,000 down to 15,000-ish. From reporting period March of 2016 to October 2017, Cochise County had about 532 children placed in DCS custody. Of those, 402 were neglect, 108 were physical abuse, 21 were sexual abuse, and 1 was emotional abuse. Arizona's Children's Association currently has 38 active foster families in Sierra Vista. In Cochise, we have 50. Some common misconceptions about foster care is we hear this whenever people call us. They call us to be foster parents and they ask us questions. And these are some of the things that we hear from families that want to be foster parents. That people do it just for the money. They don't. Actually, a lot of families that come to us don't realize that they get reimbursement for foster care. They do get that reimbursement, and it does go to help them caring for the child or children that are placed in their home. It is not income, and it is not considered income. A lot of people think that children will get abused even more if they go into a foster home. We monitor homes monthly as well as DCS when they place children, so we try to prevent that as much as possible. From them being removed from a possibly abusive or neglectful situation, we don't want them to go into another one. We are an all-inclusive agency. That means that we will work with any families, sexual orientations, and we do work with homosexual couples. And we have a lot of people say that, you know, they feel that they're terrible parents, and or that homosexual couples could be considered child predators, whatever that looks like. And we have a lot of wonderful kinship families that are homosexual couples, as well as families that have adopted. And the biggest thing with all of them is that they love kids, and they want to do the best that they can for these kids that have come into care. We have this notion whenever people call us that babies are readily available for adoption. They're not. So what the state does when they remove children, birth to 5, is that it is always reunification first. They will never remove a baby and sever that child upon removal. They give the parents the opportunity from birth to 5 to get those children back. So we have to let people know that if they want babies, it's best to go to a private adoption agency. And we also get that older children are too difficult. They have too much baggage. And really, when we talk about adoption with older children, people say they don't want to be adopted. That's not true. We work with a lot of older children that would love to have a forever home. And we also work with a lot of older children that have had multiple failed adoptions, meaning that they were adopted and families decided to come back. Okay. I also work with kinship families. We have kinship services. Kinship families are the families that are raising their grandchildren, nieces, nephews. We also work with what's called fictive kin, and those are the people that could be a teacher that know these children or a neighbor that know these children. We help these families navigate the system because oftentimes whenever a grandparent or great-grandparent gets placed with 5 of their grandchildren, it's a little overwhelming for them. So we help them navigate that. Yes, ma'am.
What was that word you used?
Kinship? Fictive kin.
What's that?
The fictive kin is, we just use that as a description for the people that know the children but aren't related. Oh. They have a significant relationship. So it could be that teacher, it could be somebody from church, it could be a neighbor, it could be just a friend of the family.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want one?
Arizona's Children Association is also the flagship for Dr. Bruce Perry's neurosequential model in caregiving and neurosequential model in therapy. He was on Oprah recently, if anybody watches Oprah, talking about what he does. The neurosequential model is an evidence-based approach that creates a functional brain map. Then that helps us really look at what's going on with these kids so that we can better prepare our families and work with the children in therapy. It gives the families that why the kids are doing what they're doing, not just them seeing it, but really what's going on behind the scenes. We are the only organization that is working with Dr. Perry. These are just some highlights for 2017, the fiscal year. This is statewide because we do work across the state. And it's pretty impressive, the amount of children and families that we are able to help. And it's really exciting for us to see what that looks like for the kids and the families. Okay, questions? Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the briefing. It was very informative. What would you say are some of the top needs that you need from the community, or what kind of support do you specifically need that we can help you out with?
I think the biggest thing that we really need the community to know and understand is what foster care looks like. We get a lot of people that come to us and they don't really understand what foster care is. They think that they're going to come and it's going to be this pretty much adoption right off the bat. It's not. We really want families, biological families, to work to change whatever caused that removal and to get their children back. We like to see families come to us that need the assistance behavioral health-wise before it gets to the point of removal. And we really want everybody to work together. That's one of the things that we aren't seeing a lot in the community, which used to be, is not everybody knows what everybody else does. And so we're trying to get that together so that we know that this person provides this service and this person provides this service. So then we can make sure that we are getting what these families need. And that's the biggest thing for us and from the community at large, is really just knowing like what is out there for these families. It's hard for some of the families to navigate the system, kinship specifically, and biological families that we work with, because it's such an overwhelming system. So when the community comes together at large and they can say, you know what, these places have the behavioral health services, and oh, by the way, this can transport you and help you with getting to work, things like that, that's what we could use as a community to really come together to help these kids and these families be successful.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to say about how many families you're able to reunite after all that you do to help them come together again?
No, and I'll tell you why, not right now. Because it looks very different now. So before, the state would remove, and they were using a risk versus safety method to remove. Now they've changed to what's called Safe AZ, which is why the numbers have dropped from 19,000 to 15,000. And so what their prime approach is when they remove children, they want to make sure that they're providing services to help those families get those children back. It's right away. So they're doing that comprehensive approach right in the beginning to ensure that children are reunified quickly. That just went into effect around October, November timeframe. So it's a new approach. So once they do the annual report, we'll know a little bit more about what reunification looks like. But it is going to look a lot different than it did in the past, because they are working really hard to make sure that children stay with family. Biological parents or grandparents, aunts, uncles, whatever that looks like.
Do many of the children from Sierra Vista have to go far away to get foster care?
Yes, ma'am. It is based on their age, honestly. Littles, the 0 to 5 population, is extremely easy to place. Everybody wants the little ones because they're considered easier, you know. So if a child is older and if they have already some baggage or some issues with them, they're going to be harder to place. Not a lot of people take teens. So when a teen comes into care, a majority of the time they are sent to a group home. Group homes are in Pima County and Maricopa County.
We don't have any in this area.
No, ma'am.
What about Mary's Mission? That's not a group
Mary's
home.
Mission is.
So yes. Okay, so Mary's Mission was a group home, but they don't take DCS children anymore. So they have to send them to Pima or Maricopa.
One more, sorry.
No, please.
One more about those older kids. I know there's been some work. As a matter of fact, I know Arizona Community Foundation did a really comprehensive, with either Morrison Institute or ASU, a really comprehensive study of foster kids and how they're affected by the system and by school and everything. But also when they age out of the system. Do we have a good program for aging out kids?
Yes, we do.
And, oh, wonderful. Could you say just a little bit about that?
Love to. So what we have is the Young Adult Program, and what that does is when children are 16 or older, DCS can refer to the Young Adult Program. What that program does is that helps children learn those needs that they have. So they teach them how to balance a checkbook. They teach them how to essentially be an adult, to hold down a job, to stay in school. Those are what they are really pushing for these kids. Once the children age out, the children have the opportunity to stay in that young adult program and to be what's called voluntary foster children. So then they will have somebody that will help them after that 18. Rather than just turning 18 and just all of a sudden they're on their own. Yeah. It's a DCS referral service, and we also work to try to get a lot of children that have already aged out to come in to the program so that we can help them. The ones that are struggling, once that they've turned 18 and they have nothing, we try to work with them as well to get them to come into our program so that we can help them. Statistically, children that age out without any of those services and without a good support system, they can end up homeless, they'll end up in jail, they will end up possibly dead. So we really try to work with that population to prepare them.
Is there any connection between what you do and the police department? Do you guys, like if the police pick up a 17-year-old, is there any connection there to say, well, this kid's been in the foster system and you guys are out there and you have a program? Do you ever have that kind of connection?
No, we don't. Here's why. Because it goes to DCS. So if they would pick up a child and that child is either already in the system and a runaway, then DCS would call us to look for placement. If they would pick up a child and that child hasn't been removed yet and DCS determines that it needs to be a removal, they will then work with us to find a home. So it goes to DCS first. They have more of a relationship with DCS than they do with us. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
First, thank you for the work that you do in this very important field. I can't imagine.
It's awesome. It's sometimes heartbreaking, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. So on one of these slides, it says that there's 50 foster/adoptive families in Cochise County. And I was curious if you had maybe a magic number where there would no longer be a gap between available families and kids that are looking for foster families.
I don't off the top of my head. What we are looking at right now, I believe, is approximately probably that are severed, legally severed, meaning they are readily available for adoption. I believe it's about 5,000 to 8,000 of kids that are waiting for their forever home. What that looks like is a lot of the older kids or sibling groups, because there are a lot of children that come with sibling groups and they don't want to break up sibling groups, so they would like to keep them together. And not everybody can take on a sibling group of 5. They're not prepared for that. So those are the children that are waiting for their forever home.
Okay, thank you.
That's a
Do
statewide
you work
number,
with the
5,000.
CASA program?
We do, yes. So a lot of our children have CASAs. Yeah. And the children that don't, we try to get them to work with the CASA program and get them a CASA, because it really helps advocate for that child and what is best for that child.
I've got a question. We used to have in Wichita City, the county children's home.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you see that as something that would help you in being able to take care of the kids, or is that a hindrance, or is it problematic reestablishing a similar facility?
I personally think that it would help, especially for those children that are being sent to Pima and or Maricopa County, when all that they've ever known is here, all of their friends are here, their school is here. Shipping them somewhere else or moving them somewhere far, far away really hurts them in the long run. So having something closer that they could maybe stay in their school or still see their friends, I think that that would be beneficial.
And I guess the question really is would that do you think that would help speed adoption as well, since they're closer to family, friends, etc. here? Eventual placement in adoption.
It could.
It could.
It could. And the reason that it could is because I think that they would be able to stay in their area, stay in their school, hopefully, fingers crossed, do well in their school, but then also behavioral health services. They are able to stay with the same behavioral health services when they're in the same area. It makes it a little bit difficult when they are moving from Sierra Vista to, say, Phoenix, and the services look different. They always try to keep them with the same services services, but it doesn't always happen. So that can cause regression in children when they're doing really well in therapy down here or with services down here, and then they have to stop and get moved, and it might take 6 months to start in Phoenix. So I think that with that consistency, that it would help the children in the long run, and then it would be helpful to us also to be able to place them.
Thank you. Anybody else? I want to thank you for your time. I think you've enlightened all of us and caused us to think a little bit more about this issue that's critical to our kids
Yes.
and our future. So again, I want to thank you for being here and spending the time with us. And if you think of something else that we can help you with in the future, by all means, get a hold of us. I think everybody here would be happy to help if we can.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate this. And I'm just really happy to be able to tell you about foster care and our kids and what we do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to item number C, discussion of the executive report and Madam Assistant City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, we wanted to give the council plenty of heads up to mark your calendars. We have at the May 8th work session, you'll receive your first budget update, and we'll plan other work sessions as needed additionally. Your official special budget work sessions will be scheduled for June 11th through the 13th, so please mark your calendars for them as well. We still expect to get the tentative budget book to you the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, and then June 4th to the 8th, one-on-one meetings with council members as requested. Another item to mark your calendar for is next Tuesday. We'll be having a special budget, or not a budget work session, but a special work session on refuse and recycling. That'll be a joint work session with city staff and county staff, so please plan to attend that as well. Of note from the recent CCOM board meeting, the board selected 4 excellent candidates to interview for the executive director position. Those interviews will happen this Monday afternoon, not mid-May as was written in the executive report. We had one person decide to do a phone interview, so they will all happen on Monday afternoon. And then we heard from CenturyLink that the go-live date for the center is firmly scheduled for July 18th based on their 911 switchover. Also, Vistas will be upgraded to a 68-page magazine starting this August. Our marketing and public affairs team, after careful consideration, decided to move forward with changing our current newspaper printed format to a magazine. And what this will do is it enhances the magazines, it'll enhance the visual quality, offer a more in-depth feature for better engagement, more in-depth information, and it increases the lifetime of how long people will hold on to this magazine. So we're looking forward to seeing marketing and public affairs turn out that first issue.
Question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
What's the cost on that?
It is covered in,
Yeah, I saw the write-up of it.
Covered.
Was there a cost in there?
Yeah, there was something in there.
if it's not in here, Mr. Mount, we can get that for you.
And the other question is the frequency. I think in the past, it's been once every 2 months.
It will be quarterly, Mr. Mayor.
It'll be quarterly, so it'll be less often. Okay.
Was it 19?
I don't see anything.
Oh, wait.
It's on page 21.
Yeah. Is there a faster way to move this?
Oh, I'm sorry to see it.
Did you find it?
Thank you, Ms. Ash. $31,551. And finally, I'd like to express congratulations to the library and Henry Hauser Museum staff for their hard work and their successful grant award of $60,000 from the National Center for Interactive Learning at the Space Science Institute, which will mean exhibits, workshops, STEAM programming, all coming to the library in 2020, which is an exciting proposition for area youth to explore the possibility of life on other planets.
Okay. Questions for Mrs. Yarborough?
Just a comment. I like the way I don't have it in front of me, but the way Library and Leisure did the picture of the funds that they make, the attendance at the various, that was helpful to see the ups and downs and how things are going. I imagine if there's ever anything that's really outstanding, we'll talk about that, you know, as the whys and wherefores. But having the information that way is really good to see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Easier to
On
understand.
the report from Mrs. Yarborough? Yes, sir.
Traffic collisions. So it's not just the traffic collisions, but I know that you, when you get further down in there, you still talk about the manpower required in order to facilitate some of your work. What is, with the budget coming up, can we get at least a little bit of a lead in of maybe what you're going to ask for or what you have asked for so that we get an understanding of how to kind of maybe move forward with some of these things?
Sure. Obviously, part of the manpower issues that we've discussed in the past have to do with the long-term unavailability of our officers, either in openings or light duties, FMLA, that type of stuff. In addition, all the different, we're getting pulled in multiple different directions, narcotics, property crimes, those kind of things. So we have pulled and for some time have not had traffic officers. We had 2 assigned to traffic, which ends up resulting obviously in less time for officers to work traffic. So as part of the strategic plan, you guys asked me to do an evaluation of what we believed would be needed in the future to continue providing the services that we have had. I've turned that into city management, that report. In our evaluation, we believe we need 13 more positions. We obviously realize that can't happen all at once. So in this budget request, we had requested 2 additional officers this year and try to spread those out over 5 years to get that to where it needs to be so that we can continue proactive community involvement, but also handle those other issues, the increased calls for service that we have seen over the last couple of years.
Is the community reaction team included in that?
That is.
And then how much of this feedback, let me ask this, since we're on the brink of getting a budget delivered to us, at the management level, how much of this has already been somewhat set in stone as far as the draft is concerned that's going to get presented to council? Or are you still weighing options?
What exactly do you mean by set in stone, Mr. Mount?
Well, typically you get a draft budget, and the draft budget has the recommendations from management on where the spending should go, and then council will hem-haw about, a few of the pieces on the fringes. I guess what I'm asking is how far into that process are you, and were elements from the police force, are those already included in the draft, or is this something that we're going to have to go back into and find money to fund something like that?
There's absolutely nothing set in stone on the budget yet. What we have to date is the first round of requests from our departments.
Okay.
We're still putting the revenue projections together. Once that we have that, staff and I will sit down and take a look at where the asks are versus what we project the revenue to be and start evaluating what those requests are.
Is it possible, and I'll tangent here a little bit, Mayor, if it's okay, since we're a lot of these issues that are here in the executive report, which by the way is fantastic. It's a good document. When it comes to the budget, let me try to get back on train of thought here. When you deliver the budget, is it possible that you show us where the increases were by department, almost at the item level, if there are any increases or any new spending? So, for example, if we take, I'll just take the one that I'm looking at right now because it's up here. If we go with the SIPs and the Sierra Vista SIPs and wine thing, if that shows an increase in the budget, will we be able to see that pretty easily that was increased from the previous year and have an idea of how much it was increased? Or if it was a new item that is being added to the budget that wasn't there before, will we be able to clearly see that as well? And then also, if there are some key issues that maybe us as council are interested in, can we send those up to you to find out if those things made the cut and how much they were projected to be? That's a lot to ask for, I know.
Well, actually, we do some of that already. When we get the draft, when you talk about adding police officers, for example, that would be as a plus up. You get the whole layout. There's a whole chart on personnel by department that will show you that you're going to get either plussed up or plussed down, and that should be very apparent if you go through it in detail that's there. Now, if you're asking for a separate document that says here are the major changes from last time, we normally get that during the preliminary briefings.
Yes.
And I'm not sure we've other than the briefing slides, I'm not sure we've gotten that in a specific form before.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I'm just trying to prepare here a little bit.
And traditionally, we've pointed out substantial increases or decreases. We haven't gone line by line.
Previous years.
However, that is one of the opportunities that's afforded to you in the one-on-one budget meetings to go through it in more depth. If you have additional ideas, I would be more than happy to listen.
Yeah, I guess the ask that I'm putting out there is to make it as easy for us as possible to identify where the changes are at from last year to this year.
Okay.
So that we can get an idea of what is actually changing. I do realize that sometimes it's pretty cut and dry, other times it's not.
Dig.
I don't want to dig. I'd rather having bigger discussion. The potential risks that we have.
I think this is along the same lines. If there's something we've heard about or talked about this year, we don't see it in the budget, or if there's something that's not there that we thought was really important or really going to be in the budget, when is the best time to bring that up? Like, for instance, if we should just say have 4 new policemen instead of just 2. When do we?
You have a number of opportunities to do that. One is you could do it during the general budget discussion.
Right.
You could do that after you get the first cut of the budget and go in and talk individually with the management, or you can wait till you do your one-on-one sessions.
Okay, say a little bit more, Mayor.
There's a lot to do you can do a lot in the one-on-one session.
Say a little more about those one-on-ones, because I don't quite understand. I know we've always done that, or that's always been a possibility.
Well, this is one of the things I rely on because like Craig said, it's a big book. There's a lot of detail, and even if you've been through it 3 or 4 times, there's a possibility you're missing something. And he's absolutely correct when you say the staff needs to go over the changes. But again, we also need to make sure that they're going over and doing the things that are in the strategic plan as well,
right,
and come up with a balance. So as you read that, when you have questions about whether those parameters are being met, then you need to basically get one-on-one with Chuck or David or Victoria to make sure that you're getting your answer, you're getting your questions answered, and if there's issues, you need to bring it up to the other council members. So when we have our budget discussions in open session,
okay, that's the part
we can bring those up.
That's the part I have a little difficulty with. And first of all, budget is not my strongest suit in understanding. And it is helpful to talk individually with somebody about those pieces I don't quite get. But the part that I don't really appreciate is that, for instance, I'll use Craig. Craig will go in and talk with the city manager to gain understanding or to talk about some issue. I don't know what he's talking about. And so I don't have a chance to weigh in or get more information. So
that's
why don't we just...
Understanding, we'd never get I don't think we'd ever get a budget done, even though we're best intention of doing that. What needs to happen is, and again, we'll use Craig as an example, if he's got a burning issue, it's not being met, well, without going into a formal council session, he can talk to the other 3 other council people about it and let them know. And I'm sure he's done that. I've done that as well.
Yeah, and for the record,
bring it up at the, and Craig's done this too. Bring it up at the meetings when we're talking about budget.
That I get. Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that I find it awkward not to know what we're all kind of having an opportunity to discuss with the city manager or with Victoria, not on technical things, but on wants and issues about, or items that we want added or taken out of the budget. That's the piece.
But again, that's the part, if you're looking for consensus on whether we need to add 2 positions or take away 2 positions.
Right.
That's when we do the general open session budget
Okay.
discussion. That's
Okay.
the time for that.
Okay,
And again, if you're looking for support for other council people,
for something we want to add
for
or
something that we want to
take
add,
out.
that you can discuss
Right, right.
that with them as well. But again, it's a process, and the way we've got the process is basically, it's a proposed budget we get from the staff.
Yeah, got it.
Okay?
Got it.
And hopefully, if the staff's doing their job, they've got an 80% solution or 85% solution or 95% solution. It's our job to go in and find out what else we can live with to bring it up to 100% balanced budget. And that's that last couple of meetings where we do in the open, where everybody can see us. And the challenge, of course, has been the last couple of years is with the revenue stream shrinking and the desires and the needs growing, it's more of a challenge, and it's probably more of a reason why we should be more involved in those last couple of budget sessions to give direction to staff.
Okay, I'll think about that for a while, and then I'll get back with you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and for the record, since I was the example, the staff is
It's not a tributary.
the staff is
attributable.
very accommodating, at least to me, and I'm probably I don't know how you guys are, but I know I always give them the pop in and don't usually schedule anything, and we'll just kind of go in and just start talking to them. One of the reasons why I bring it up is I realize we're going to have a lot of challenges this year. I understand that. What I don't want there to be is twofold. I don't want there to be any perception, because I don't think it's the reality, but I don't want there to be any perception that things are kind of sliding in and out of the budget without council really understanding what's in there. And then the other piece is I do expect, given the constraints that we have and some of the things that were voted on in the strategic plan and some of the other things that have popped up, especially with public safety, that there may be some requests for some changes. And I just want to maximize that amount of time we have and that we're not finding things after the fact that council just didn't do a good job of keeping track of. So it's more to help us out than anything else. That's why I make the ask.
Okay. Ma'am.
Victoria, I was trying to remember your last name, Miss Yarborough. On the wine tasting tour as part of Spirits and Sips and Skies, it says that the wine tasting tour is limited to the first 30 registrants. If you were to have a lot more registrants or people wanting to go, is it possible to increase that number at all?
I'm going to throw that one over to Ms. Wilson.
We're not sure right now. We limited it to 30 because that's how many our bus could accommodate. If it becomes an issue, right now I think we're down to only having 6 seats left on the bus. Then we'll look at possibly additional vans, but we're not planning for it at this time.
I see. Thank you.
Going back to the traffic collisions and understand what the chief is saying about needing more people. One of the things that we had talked about before, and I'll bring it up again, that I think we might want to re-explore, is lengthening the yellow light intervals, and then also looking at, and I see it here, maybe it's just different from where I'm from, but the way that we do our turn indicators, they almost seem reversed. Yeah, so I think that maybe taking a look at that, bringing everybody to a stop, and then having people make the turn and bringing them, some things like that I think would be helpful. What do we need to do in order to explore those two, possibilities?
I'll go ahead and start answering a little bit of it. The majority of our accidents actually occur at ADOT-controlled intersections, so it's a little bit more difficult. Ms. Fassar and I would have to work with ADOT to work with any kind of controls on that. We have basically between Foothills and the 9092 intersection, almost 25,000 vehicles travel that daily. And I think this construction project that ADOT has that's going to be kicking off, they're going to redo the Foothills intersection, is going to help some. That engineering design does help with that. So for the ADOT controlled intersections, is a lot more difficult, obviously. Ms. Vassar, I know, has the engineers have their reasons why they do their particular reasons on the lights and stuff that they would have to work on the city controlled intersections.
I'm back to the leisure department. What are leisure rentals?
That would be any facility that's rented out by another party. So it could be fields or a room, anything.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else on the report? Okay. We'll move on to item D, which is reports of recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. I know Gwen has been practicing her Mexican folk dancing since she's going to represent us down at Hermosillo coming up.
Buenos dias.
Yeah. Anything else? That's it?
Who's the trip with?
It's,
Or are you just
it's
going?
an Arizona Town Hall
Oh,
meeting
that's right.
for Hermosillo and Arizona, so especially southern Arizona. And the topic is economic development. And I think the ED department does a really great job of connecting with folks. We're there to listen and observe and, of course, share what Sierra Vista has. I just want to add, too, that Judy is going, and so there'll be that bit of marketing happening there. Michael, Judy, and
Thank you for
and
coming.
I like to show, you're welcome, I like to show that the municipality, that the city government is caring and involved in these economic development efforts. I think people appreciate that. Thank you.
Anybody else on trips, meetings, future meetings? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Kind of at the last minute, the food co-op asked me to come down and speak about some of the projects that were going on at the West End. It was specifically to those things. So we talked quite a bit about the West End partnership. We talked about the Frytown cleanup. We talked about the development impact fees and the suspension of those. So it was a good little discussion, room full of people. But I can share names with who was there, but most of us know those people. But that was a discussion that went on. And then also the where they buck, the bull riding was out there for the 2 days. And there was, on the second day, they were very happy. It looked like about 1,500 people showed up, and the people that we were meeting were from Phoenix and lots of places from out of town. It was a pretty good success, and everybody had a lot of fun. And I know that they're going to come back to the city next year and see what they can do to continue to grow that out. So they thank you all for your support on that, and it was a very good turnout.
All right, great. Another great event for the city. Anybody else? All right, we'll go down to E, which is Board and Commission Liaison Updates. Yes, ma'am.
Just, we still need one person for the Industrial Development Commission, the IDA.
Okay. And they have to be a citizen
They
of
do
the
have
city.
to be,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Ma'am.
I missed something on our meetings. We had a meet and greet that had a problem with the timing of it, but I did go to the meet and greet, and I had a few comments. I sent information to everybody on the comments that were made. I just want to point out, too, that it's really nice that the farmers market, which is where the meet and greet was, quite a few of our visitors use farmers market, and they always have really nice things to say about our community, which is very nice. I know we have things we're working on in the community, but it's always nice to hear what people see as positives in our community. And one of the most outstanding things that always catch me by surprise is that people love how friendly Sierra Vistans are. One lady said, and I've never lived in a really big city. I have visited large cities, but I've never lived in one. And one lady said, if somebody comes up to me and smiles like that and says hello in whatever city she was from, I would back away slowly and not encourage that conversation. So there's some kind of difference that I'm not real familiar with, but it'll make me a lot more careful about greeting people when I go to a big city. Anyway, it was just a pleasant experience, and I want to encourage everybody to go to the farmers market and have lunch there. And there's great food trucks and great food, and that can't be wrong.
We're still down 4 on the Cultural Diversity Commission. I know we're actively out looking for people now, but that's what we need 4 people. Also posted in the reading room underneath commissions, there was a PDF that the Airport Commission, one of the members of the Airport Commission had pulled together. When they were doing their briefing, one of their asks that they brought to council was they have a gap in coverage for the weather radar through the AWAS. Well, they went out and they found a commercial alternative. It's right around $6,000, so it's affordable. They presented it at the Airport Commission meeting. Colonel Boone was there, so he can back me up on this. The fort was asked if this would be something that would get in the way of theirs or anything like that, but the answer was no. The little bit of property that we have where it would go, it'll fix right up into there. Very affordable, but it does allow them to solve the weather problem of getting the weather information up and out to those pilots that are using our airport.
We need to pursue that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Given, I think,
get
what the other estimates
the
were.
information, and Sharon, we need to pursue that.
Yeah, given where the estimates were for a full-blown AWAS, obviously this is much less expensive, but they seemed excited about it, so I wanted to share that, and
That's
they
great.
provided it up.
And we need to, of
That
course,
from a
consider
commission.
operations and maintenance too. So
Yeah, and then Colonel Boone attended the meeting along with the usual staff. It was a good meeting. They discussed quite a bit. One of the things they kept keying on was, and it's my fault, so I took the hit for it, was how do we continue to build up the dialogue back and forth between the council and the commissions, and what's really the role and the goals of having the commissions, and how do we just move the information around. So taking at least that weather radar piece and bringing it back up before the budget, that's what I told them we would try to do. And then obviously the feedback I'll take back to them, and we'll go from there. So.
okay, anything on other on boards, commission liaisons? Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to let the council know about a brief update that Jill gave to Cody. Please correct me if I'm wrong, as I so often am. So she came to Cody this month. What month is it?
This one.
Who am I? Where is this place?
Yes, so Jill came to Cody this month to update them on her role as the new ADA coordinator, and also touch on some of the things that were in their presentation that they gave to council, particularly about the website. And she did let the commission know that she had reached out to the web designer to obtain more information on the costs of updating the website. And she said that she would be back to update the commission when she gets that information. And then based on that, we'll have to figure out what the next steps are. That's it.
Okay. Anybody else? Then we'll move to the final item, which is future discussion items and council requests. Yes, sir.
I have one, and this is something that was brought up last year during the budget, and I want to revisit it. The class comp study and how the 2% pay raise and how everybody gets their promotions. I'd like for council to have an understanding of where that problem is. I think it could be solved fairly easily, and I don't think it necessarily has to apply to every single department the way that it could get fixed for the ones that have more of a hierarchical structure versus people who are kind of crossing from one department to another. I know that would be, I'm not sure where we fit it in prior to the budget. I don't think it has a huge budgetary impact. Do I need to?
Well,
everybody's kind of.
I think we're probably going to discuss that as part of the budget, because the pay increase. I mean, I personally think things are tight enough where we're going to have to look at that. Just exactly what you suggested. We're going to have to look at that, see where it fits in.
Well, I'm not talking
And
about
if we can even do it this year.
Well, I'm not talking about, well, if we have that discussion, then we'll have that discussion. No, what I'm talking about is right now when a person gets promoted, so let's say you have a firefighter or a cop, when they get promoted up, they get looked at from their, it's kind of like their time and grade, their time in service, and it's their merit.
Performance,
And it's kind of all commingled together. So what's happening is if I'm Officer A, you're Officer B, and I get promoted up, and I've got, I get promoted 6 months ahead of when my time and grade is coming up, then what I'm doing is I'm going to lose out on some of that. So I'm going to lose out on 6 months. But then if another person gets promoted on or around where their time and grade started, their time and service started, they're getting that pay increase immediately. And so what it's doing is it's creating a bit of almost like shadow compression for the people who are getting promoted before the others, even though they're doing the same job and have the same piece. And that's just that's a policy problem more than anything else, and I think it can be solved very quickly with very little impact. But I think that the root of it is that when you have somebody who gets promoted, say, from PAO and decides to go over to community development, and they change jobs, there's like some sort of other piece in there that's messing that hierarchical structure up. Now, what I would recommend, because most of us have seen these in our organizations before, sometimes when you make such a drastic move, they kind of, not a promotion, but if they say you're going from one department to another department, you close them out, give them their eval, hey, you're getting a new job, you applied for a new job, and then we'll handle that on a case-by-case basis, but at least it fixes the hierarchical positions where, whether it's in public works, fire, police, they're able to move up normally without taking that kind of shadow hit on their pay. Again, as far as I'm tracking, it's just a policy issue that we have to go back and just readdress. I don't think it's going to affect the budget. As far as the 2% piece, Mayor, I'll defer to you on how you want to lead that.
Now I get your point. And if there's a way we can prevent what he described happening, we probably can do it through the personnel office and regulation and the personnel without a budget impact. I agree, but again, we need to look at specific cases, and I know our personnel director's got a lot on her plate right now, so that we do need to talk about that. So I think it's a valid request before the budget comes up.
Thank you. Rest of council, I think most of us have heard at least a little bit about this.
But need more discussion,
Yeah,
more understanding of
we need more we need more understanding, and then we want to be fair to all the employees, and I think that's the goal.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you for bringing that up.
All right. Seeing nothing else before council, meeting's adjourned. See you Thursday. If not before.
That's